Greetings, everyone. I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion. Now we come to episode 3 of season 2, Brother. While not one of my favorite episodes of the season, it is right at that level to where if it wasn't for the fact there are some episodes later on, I really do enjoy it. Easily make the top seasons list. It's like right at the cutoff. And as the title suggests, it is a Robert centric episode. It is the second anniversary of his divorce, and despite the fact he does have a girlfriend now, a dog, and loving family, he's down in the dumps. Part of that being that Amy is out of town, so it's not like he can just hang around with her and then, cast those feelings aside. He still has a dog, but the dog has to go outside every now and then, so he's just sitting at home, being his usual self, like Eeyore, as some of the characters have described him. Frank and Marie have tried their best to cheer him up, but it's not working. So they come across the street to get Ray and go, Ray, go across the street, talk with your brother. Be a brother. You gotta help him. We're out of material. Ray's like, fine. Goes across the street, starts talking with Robert. He's trying to figure out something, and they decide to go to the movies. Even when they first leave, Robert's still a little down in the dumps, but he's cheering up a bit. By the time they get back, complete flip. He's all super excited. They're talking about the movie. They wake up Deborah, but then things switch once Ray accidentally spills the beans and says that this was not his idea originally, it was the parents. He follows Robert across the street to apologize. Robert's not taking it at first. But then eventually, once the parents come down and they start messing with them with some in-jokes, like with Zucrettes, those lozenges, something that they had mentioned before Ray messed everything up. They start messing with them like, you don't want to take too many of those, Ma. Look at all the pretty colors. They keep messing with her. They mess with Frank a little bit, which leads to one of my favorite little exchanges in the entire show. Once they stop teasing a little bit, and Marie's like, you two just keep laughing. One of these days, you'll turn around and I won't be here. Without missing a beat, Ray's like, turns around, looks at Marie without missing a beat, goes, not today. Robert bursts out laughing. Marie storms off. Frank's still looking at him because of the ways they made fun of him. Starting with him bringing up Korea again, as he's apt to do. They slap a band-aid on it and say, snap out of it! And talking about the war medicine when he was in Korea. This leads to the final scene, which is the heart of this episode, where we saw bonding between the brothers, with the chocolate milk, them making fun of the parents, and then this last scene is a continuation of it, where we see Robert, his chipper self. He's wanting to take Ray fishing, and then while the game is on, they're going to be talking. Ray's like, I don't want to talk, which I can understand, because sometimes having a heart-to-heart talk with a sibling is difficult, especially if you're not used to it. And as you get older, not going to be any bit easier. Now, if you have certain things in common, hobby-wise, it makes it a bit easier, but you usually focus talking on that. And then when you get to a more heart-to-heart talk, you're like, oh, it's feelings. And that's where Ray's having an issue because he doesn't like talking about his feelings. He doesn't like talking about his feelings that much with Deborah. What makes you think he's going to want to talk about his feelings with his brother? Well, he's hoping the game kicks that down and nips it in the bud, but it's the State of the Union to just, my fellow Americans. So Robert takes the opportunity to bring up the conversation, and it's romance related, which, given the fact that he was down in the dumps considering his divorce and the fact Amy wasn't around, you can understand why he decides to go this. The way he phrases it throws Ray off, though, where he initially says that it's about Amy. All right, go ahead. And then he asks Ray if he had to sleep with Deborah before he realized he was in love with her, and this is where he's at in his relationship with Amy. He's trying to realize, like, do I really care for Amy, or will I start to change my view of her once we do? Because I might find out it was just lust and not actually a deep romantic connection, which anyone can understand, because, when you're in that initial part of the relationship, it's all, oh, honey, all that. But then as it gets deeper, you're like, maybe we're not so compatible, and then maybe you get intimate and maybe something changes a little bit. Maybe you realize, maybe we weren't as compatible. Maybe it's just seeing him or her with rose-tinted glasses with that fog of lust. Then you also realize, yeah, there was something there. And that's the conundrum that Robert has. Well, Ray answers him, gets brutally honest with him, and tells him that, yeah, I did feel that I had that problem, but you know what happened afterwards? I cried. He's so honest that it kind of does freak Robert out a little bit, which leads to them just sitting there on the couch watching the State of the Union address and fade to black. The brothers had a heart-to-heart, and it got weird, so they go back to watching politics instead of the game. Oh no, it's a pretty fun episode. Ends on the way that you would expect from these characters. This type of thing is never really brought up again, even though there are episodes, especially in season 3, when a certain big event happens that this event could have been brought up. But that's sitcom continuity for you. Stuff is only brought up when needed, and usually just as an aside. Like something that happens in season 3 with Frank is brought up in a later episode, but is brought up to describe how wacky the parents are. It's nice to see an episode dedicated to Robert and his relationship, not only with Ray, but with Amy in a roundabout way. See the brothers bond, see them make fun of their parents in unison, even though Ray's the one taking the lead on it. It's nice to see them actually act like brothers, because before this, I can't really think of a moment where we really saw them interact for more than just a brief moment where you're like, oh yeah, they're brothers. Here, we finally get that moment. And it's the first of many throughout the show, even though one of the episodes, the Rebirth. Oh, once we get to season 6, I'm going to have a lot to say about that episode. Part of the reason this episode works is because of the writing of Jeremy Stevens, in addition to the way the actors portray it. Jeremy Stevens, he wrote some of my favorite episodes as well. Your Place or Mine, Neighbors, some of the better episodes of season 1. And in this season, he also writes Ride Along, which is one of my favorite episodes. And next season, he writes Lone Barone, which is another Robert-centric episode involving relationships. It's the one where his relationship with Amy ends the first time, hence the title. And of course, he also wrote the 80s comedy Summer Rental. And he also wrote many, many episodes of Electric Company. There's more stuff he wrote, those are just the standouts. So you can see he's had a prolific writing career, so he knows not only how to structure everything, but he knows comedy and relationships. So him to be the one to write this episode, perfect choice, and that's part of the reason the episode worked. Like I said at the beginning, definitely a very fun episode, one of the best of the season. Doesn't quite make my favorite of season 2 list, but who knows, by the time I finish season 2 this time, that might change. It might actually make the list. I might demote another episode, promote this one, or it might be one of those ones that are like, oh, expand it by one episode. We will have to wait and see. Which is fitting considering the episode that follows this up, Mozart, is one of my favorite episodes of this season, and it is one that Robert goes to the background, and it's a Ray and Mother issue.